of phenotype should not overstretch our credibility. This chapter takes the first step towards such a further extension by looking at the animal artifact as an example of the phenotypic expression of genes. The fascinating subject of animal artifact is reviewed by Hansel. We showed the artifact provides useful case studying for several principles of general ecological importance. This chapter used the same artifact of the service of explaining another principle, that of the extended phenotype. Consider a hypothetical species of caddisfly whose larvae build house out of stone, which they select from those available on the bottom of the stream. You might observe the population containing two rather distinct colors of house, dark and light. By a breeding experiment, we distinguished the characters dark house and light house breed through the some simple Mendelian fashion, say with dark house dominant to light house. In principle, it ought to be possible to discover by analyzing recombination data. Here the genes for house color sit on the chromosome. This is, of course, hypothetical. I do not know of the genetic work on caddis house, and it would be difficult to do because adults are different breed in capacity. But my point is that if the practical difficulties could be overcome, nobody would be very surprised if house color did turn out to be a simple Mendelian character, in accordance with my third experiment. Actual color is a slightly unfortunate example to be chosen, since caddis version is poor, vision is poor, and they almost certainly ignore visual clue in choosing stone, rather than use a more realistic example like a stone shape. I state this color for the sake of the analogy with the black pigment discussed above. The interesting sucker is that house color is determined by the color of the stones chosen by the stream bed by the lava, not by the biochemical synthesis of black pigment. The gene determining house color must work by a behavioral mechanism and choose stone, perhaps via the eyes. So much would be agreed by any ethologist. All this chapter added a logical point. Once you have accepted that there are genes for building behavior, the rules of existing semiology imply that the artifact itself should be treated as part of the phenotypic expression of genes in the animal. The stones outside the body of the organism. Yet logically, such a gene is a gene for house color, in exactly as strong a sense as the hypothetical gene B was gene color. And B was included a gene for skin color, even though it worked by mediating sun-seeking behavior in exactly as strong a sense as a gene for albinism is called a gene for skin color. The logic is identical in all three cases. You have taken the first step in extending the concept of a gene's phenotype effect outside the individual body. It was not a difficult step to take because you had already softened up our resistance by realizing that even normal internal phenotypic effect may lie at the end of long, amplified, and indirect causal chains. Let us now step out a little further. The house of caddis is strictly not a part of its cellular body, but it does fit snugly around the body. If the body is regarded as a gene vehicle, the survival emulsion, it's easy to see the stone house as a kind of extra protective wall. In a functional sense of the outer part of the vehicle, it just happened to be made of stone rather than chitin. Now consider a spider sitting at the center of the web. If she is regarded as a gene vehicle, the web is another part of the vehicle in quite the same obvious sense as a caddis house, since when she turns around the web does not turn with her. But the distinction is clearly a frivolous one. In a very real sense, her web is a temporally functional extension of her body, a huge extension of the effective catchment area of her predatory organs. Once again, I know of no genetic analysis spider web morphology, but there is nothing difficult in principle about imagining such an analysis. It is known that individual spiders have consistent idiosyncrasies which are repeated web after web. One female, Gilla X notata, for instance, was seen to build more than 100 webs, all lacking a particular centric ring. Nobody familiar with the literature on behavioral genetics would be surprised if the observed idiosyncrasies of individual spiders turn out to have a genetic base. Indeed, our belief that spider webs have evolved their efficient shape through natural selection necessarily commit us to believe that, at least in the past, web variation must have been under genetic influence. As in the case of the caddis house, the genes must have worked by a building behavior before that in embryonic development, perhaps by neuroanatomy, before that perhaps by a cell membrane biochemistry. By a variable embryological route, the gene may work in detail. The small extra step from behavior to act is not any more difficult to conceive of than the many casual steps which preceded the behavioral effect, in which lie buried in the labyrinths, the neuroembryology. Nobody has any trouble understanding the idea of genetic control of biological differences. Nowadays, few people have trouble understanding that there is in principle no difference between genetic control of morphology and genetic control of behavior, and you are unlikely to be misled by unfortunate statements such as, strictly speaking, it's the brain rather than the behavior that is genetically inherited. The point here is, of course, that if there is any sense in which the brain is inherited, behavior may be inherited in exactly the same sense. If you object to calling behavior inherited to some untenable ground, then you must, to be consistent, object to calling brain inherited too, and we do decide to allow that both morphology and behavior may be inherited. We cannot reasonably at the same time object calling caddis house color and spider web self-inherited. The extra step from behavior extend phenotype. In this case, the stone house water web is as the conceptually negligible as the step from morphology to behavior. From the viewpoint of this book, an animal artifact, like any other phenotypic product whose variation is influenced by a gene, can be regarded as a phenotypic tool by which the gene could potentially level itself into the next generation. A gene may so level itself by adorning the tail of the male birds of paradise with a sexually attractive blue feather, and by causing a male bower bird to paint his bower with pigment crushed in his bill out of blue berries. The detail may be different in two cases, but the effect from the gene's point of view is the same. Gene that achieve sexually attractive phenotype effect when compared with their allies for favorite, and it's trivial whether this phenotype effect, the conventional and extended, This is underlined by the interesting observation that bowerbird species with especially splendid bowers tend to have relatively drab plumage, while those species with relatively bright plumage tend to build less elaborate and spectacular bowers. It's as though some species have shifted part of the burden of adaptation from bodily phenotype to extended phenotype. So phenotype effects we have been considering have extended only a few yards away from the initiating genes, but in principle there is no reason why the phenotypic levels of gene power should not reach out for miles. A beaver dam is built close to the lodge, but the effect of the dam may be the plus the area thousands of square meters in extent. To the advantage of the pond from the behavior point of view, the best guess seems to be that it increases the distance the beaver